Ukraine and Russia both claim that hundreds of enemy soldiers died over the previous 24 hours in the battle for Bakhmut, with Ukraine fending off attacks and the creek that divides the town now marking the new front line. Ukraine said on Saturday that more than 500 Russian troops had been killed or injured in the last 24-hour period as they fought for control of Bakhmut. Russian troops from Wagner's mercenary group have seized territory in the eastern part of the city and suburbs to the north and south, but have so far failed to completely encircle it. Serhiy Cherevatyi, a spokesman for the Ukrainian military, said 221 pro-Moscow troops were killed and more than 300 injured in Bakhmut. Russia's defense ministry says up to 210 Ukrainian soldiers have died in the wider Donetsk section of the front line. The Ukrainian military repulsed more than 92 Russian attacks in 5 regions over the past day, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces said in its morning briefing on Sunday, reported the Kyiv Independent. According to a General Staff report, Russian troops concentrated their efforts on carrying out attacks on Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Mariinka, and Shakhtarsk in the Donetsk region. Over the last 24 hours, Russia launched 5 missiles, targeting the city of Zaporizhzhia, 12 airstrikes, and 56 NRS attacks against Ukraine, targeting the city of Kherson, resulting in civilian casualties, he said. The Ukrainian Air Force carried out 6 strikes on Russian temporary bases, while Ukrainian rocket and artillery forces hit 4 Russian temporary bases, an ammunition depot, and 2 electronic warfare stations. Meanwhile, Russia continues to use brutal tactics in eastern Ukraine. But yesterday, Putin's forces had their deadliest day and lost more than 1,000 men in 24 hours. Ukraine claimed 1,090 Vlad soldiers died yesterday, 60 more than the previous record reportedly set on February 7. Russia also lost 8 tanks, 7 armored vehicles, 4 artillery pieces, and 4 air defense systems. War is underway in eastern Ukraine, with much of the fighting centered around the 9-month-long battle that raged in Bakhmut. Soldiers are reported to be fighting from street to street and hand to hand among the ravaged, hellish landscape. The Russians reportedly used shovels as weapons because they ran out of bullets. Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner group, raged that the city was a kill zone. But despite these constant fierce attacks, the city is known as the Fortress of Bakhmut because of its heroic resistance. But British military intelligence says Russia is making progress. Russia has bombarded Ukraine more than 40,500 times since its invasion in February 2022, according to Ukraine's Interior Minister, Ihor Klimenko. The shelling has destroyed more than 152,000 residential buildings since the war began, Euromaidan reported Klimenko. Russian troops are also reportedly directing their efforts to recapture lost ground towards Kupiansk, which lies 156 kilometers east of the regional capital. Since Kupiansk was liberated from Russian occupation in September 2022, the city has been subject to daily attacks due to its proximity to the border. More than 40 missiles have hit the northeastern city of Kharkiv since the start of the year, Volodymyr Zelensky said in his evening speech on Saturday. Only since the beginning of this year, in less than 2.5 months, more than 40 enemy missiles have struck Kharkiv, Zelensky said, adding that the resulting ruins, debris, bullet holes in the ground amounted to a Russian self-portrait, reports Kyiv Independent. Meanwhile, Ukraine retook Kherson in November after nearly 8 months of occupation by Russian troops who recaptured it soon after the start of the full-scale invasion. The area is now under almost constant bombardment by Russian troops across the Dnipro River. The Washington-based think tank Institute for the Study of War said Russian troops had made gains in Bakhmut and cleared the eastern part of the city. It added that the mercenaries had advanced to a new position northwest of the city and were within 800 meters of the giant metal processing plant Azovstal. The think tank said the Wagner Group's apparent goal of taking the factory would likely lead to a further wave of Russian casualties. Ukrainian and Western military experts say Russian fighters have suffered near-catastrophic casualty rates in the long battle for Bakhmut, which U.S. military leaders say is of little strategic value and largely demonstrates Russia's desire for a symbolic victory in the face of growing criticism. Ukraine also suffered heavy losses, although neither side disclosed the latest casualty figures in the conflict, which passed its one-year anniversary in late February. According to a NATO estimate on March 6, Russia lost about 5 times more troops in the Battle of Bakhmut than Ukraine. Oleksandr Prokudin, head of Ukraine's military administration in the southern Kherson region, said 3 civilians were killed and 2 others injured in the city of Kherson when Russian shells hit their car. Russia has repeatedly denied targeting civilians, despite mounting evidence to the contrary. The commander of the Ukrainian ground forces, General Oleksandr Serhiy, said Ukrainian troops were trying to buy time for a spring offensive, which was imminent. He said Russia was continuing to deploy resources to attack Bakhmut and prevent it from advancing elsewhere. Across Ukraine, Ukrenerho, the national energy company, is working to restore power to areas after Russian missiles and drones hit critical infrastructure sites. Scheduled blackouts were carried out in several cities, including Kharkiv, the country's second-largest city. Russia's defense ministry said on Sunday that its troops were continuing military operations in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. In the Donetsk direction, more than 220 Ukrainian servicemen, an infantry fighting vehicle, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 7 vehicles, and a D-30 howitzer were destroyed during the day, the ministry said. Both sides say they have incurred significant losses and exact figures are difficult to verify.